Hello, everyone. This is Jamie Joe right here at Madlet Musings. And today I have a good friend, a fellow Wisconsinite, and we actually get to see each other on occasion, which not all writers get to do. So this is cool. But I have Liz Tolsma with me today. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Jamie. It's so good to be here. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I'm happy that you're here too. I mean, we've kind of done this little podcast exchange now because I've been on your podcast, which is, remind me of the title so I get it right.
Christian historical fiction talk.
That's what I was going to say, but I was like, I might not get that right. So, Christian Historical Fiction Talk is your podcast, and you've so graciously had me on that. And it's time for you to be on mine. So, there.
Well, I'm so glad that you had me. I always love talking to you, whether on this podcast or my podcast,
Yeah,
whenever we talk. And the times we do get together for lunch, it's always fun too.
I know
So
it is. We should do that too in 2024. Plan a date
definitely.
to do that.
Definitely.
But so, you have a book coming out in 2024, February 1st. We are recording this in December of 2023. That's why I keep referring to 2024. When this airs, it's probably already 2024. But and your book is entitled What I Promise You, and it's a World War II novel, correct?
It is. Yes. I get to write in my favorite genre again, which is
That's
World War
awesome. That's awesome. Yes, I know you love World War II genre, which is it's a
II.
real popular genre right now too. I feel like a lot of people are reading that.
It is. When I first dove into World War II more than 10 years ago now, it was very hot and then it cooled off for a little bit of
Okay.
time. And now it is super red hot
Yeah.
again. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to see it. And it's good for me because I get to write it then.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So tell us a little bit about What I Promise You. Where is it set? It looks like Southwest France, if I'm correct.
That's right. It's
All
set
right.
in West France, right along the border with Spain.
Okay.
So it's also a split time. So I'm
Okay.
taking a page from your book and writing some split time, and it's actually three timelines.
Wow.
Very ambitious with this one.
Yes.
Yes. And it centers around a maternity home that's based off of a real maternity home in
Okay.
Southwest France along the Spanish border. And at this home, a Swiss woman ran it. She took in at first Spanish refugees, pregnant women who were fleeing the civil war in Spain during the 1930s. And then when Germany invaded France in 1940,
Mhm.
the flow went the other way of Jews trying to escape France. And so she
Okay.
took pregnant Jewish women. And
Mm.
over the years, 550 babies were delivered at
Wow.
this clinic, at this hospital. Yes. And their
Okay.
lives were saved because of her. She changed their identities and helped them get out of the
Wow.
country.
Hmm.
So,
That's
yes.
awesome. That's awesome. There's so many stories like that from that era too. And
Yeah,
some of them seem hidden, like we don't hear about them.
exactly. I don't think many people know about this maternity hospital or about
Yeah.
the flow of Jews through here. There was also nearby a transit camp where
Okay.
most of the Jews from the Vichy part of France. So when the Germans invaded France, they
Mhm.
controlled the northern part of the country, but the southern part of the country was controlled really by a puppet government
Mm.
that was still, they called it Free France, but it really wasn't. It was Vichy France, and they sort of did the Germans' biddings. But there was a
Okay.
transit camp there that a lot of Jews were interred in, as well as political prisoners, and the conditions there were not good, as you can imagine.
Hmm.
And so she helped to rescue, along with another Swiss woman, helped to rescue a lot of pregnant women and young children from that transit
Okay.
camp, and to free them, and yeah, to save their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this story, is this a fictionalized version of her story, or is this another character that's kind of involved with that story, or how does that work?
Right. I didn't really know which direction I was going to go until I started writing it.
Uh-huh.
And the main character ended up being a Jewish woman from the northern part of France who was pregnant, and she and her husband were arrested in the early days of the war and taken to this transit camp.
Okay.
And through a series of events, she gets rescued from the camp and taken to the maternity home. And because of some special skills that she possesses, she becomes very important to the running of the home and helping the Jews to flee.
Okay.
And then when Germany got tired of the Vichy's kind of dragging their feet on deporting the Jews, the Germans invaded the southern part and took over and overthrew the Vichy government. And things really
Mm.
clamped down then, and they closed the maternity home, and they didn't have much time to evacuate. And
Oh,
so that's also part of the story, how
okay.
she helped to get the hospital evacuated when the Germans came in.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And how does that work out with the three different time periods then? Because that's obviously the World War II time period, but then what are the other two time periods that we're covering?
So then the second time period is 1955.
Okay.
That was actually the first time period that I started writing. It was the first chapter. I went to France to research this book.
Ah, shucks. Have to go to France to do research.
I
Darn.
know what a hardship it was. I got to
That
go to Spain and France to
I am
research.
so sorry, Liz.
I know it was tough. But I did it anyway. I did it because, I'm dedicated that
You are.
way.
You are.
So
This is why I'm constantly impressed by you. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. So my friend came along as my research assistant, and we went to visit this maternity home, and we walked around it and saw the displays and just got the general feeling of what it was like there. And I came back to our rental and I said to her, I'm sorry, I have to go write. And this first chapter just flowed
Mm.
out of me. It flowed out in first person, and I didn't know who it was that was speaking.
Oh.
And as I kept writing the book, I wrote the 1942, 1943 timeline,
Hmm.
and then also the 2022 timeline.
Okay.
And it came to me who was speaking in 1955. But in 2022, the character has gone through a real trauma of a very severe car accident. She's
Mm.
a college student, just graduated, a very traumatic experience. And to sort of escape all of the memories, she had planned on being a missionary nurse in France, or in Africa, I'm sorry,
Okay.
in Sierra Leone, where they speak French.
Hmm.
And so she was doing some training in Spain and in France to prepare for that. And her grandfather says, I was born in France. I'd love for you to go back and see where I was born.
Mm.
She does that, and it unearths more questions than she has answers for.
Yes. Yes, that would make sense. And so thus comes the World War II story of the maternity home.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Mhm. And I
And
can't
it,
say anymore without
and you
giving.
can't say anymore. Yes, I was gonna say I'm assuming the 1950-ish time period we can't learn much more about.
No, no. You will learn just about at the end. I've had some people say, I guessed it about midway through, and I've had some people say, yeah, kept me hanging. You totally surprised me at the end.
Oh,
So
that's fun. I like those kinds of stories where I'm okay if you can guess, like if you start getting hints about halfway to three-quarters of the way. If I can figure it out in that first one third of the book, I'm kind of like, doesn't necessarily make it for a bad story, but it's just like, oh, shucks, I figured it out.
great. Yes, I know. Well, I never figure yours out until the end. So I try to take my clues from you
I was
and
just saying, that's because I never figure out mine until the end.
right.
I'm like,
It
oh,
sort of
you're the
helps.
killer. Oh, you're the ghost. Okay, I get it now.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fun. Awesome. So the thing I didn't know about World War II, I shouldn't say I didn't know, but I don't think about Spain with World War II. I think of France, and I don't really think about that southern France. I mean, it's always Paris, 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 Paris when you think of France and World War II. So it's interesting too that you're going to a different section of geography that may not be as familiar, which is something you tend to do with your World War II fiction.
I do. I really like to pick little known
Yes.
places or events or something like that. And so I knew I wanted to set a book in France. I already have one World War II in
Hmm.
France.
Hmm.
Loved writing it. I'm a Francophile. And so I knew I wanted to do France, but I wanted to do something different than, like you said, Paris or
Yeah.
Normandy or anything like that. And so as I was researching France during the Second World War, this just popped up. and that happens to me so much. I'll just be reading or doing something, and
Mhm.
an article or something will pop up and it will fascinate me, and that will be the catalyst for the story. And I heard about this maternity home and the good work that this Swiss woman did. She was a fine Christian woman, the daughter of a pastor, and so she really inspired me. She lived to be quite old. Now, I'm not going to quote exactly how old she was,
Mhm.
either side of 100. So
Wow. Wow.
she had lived a very long, full life. She never married, never had children, but she
Oh,
said,
wow.
I had 550 children.
I was gonna say she probably counts a lot of those infants as her offspring, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So it was fun to go there and to explore a different part of France. It's right
Yeah.
along the Mediterranean.
Okay.
So absolutely stunning. It's so beautiful. And because there aren't a lot of Americans who go there,
Mhm.
some Brits, but mostly Spanish, other French, Italian, things like that. They don't speak
Yeah.
an awful lot of English. So that was
Okay.
a real challenge for me in my high school French,
Okay.
that learning how to communicate with them. But we
Ah.
have a lot of fun, and usually I'll have a page long glossary of foreign words.
Mhm.
I'm afraid I have 3 pages long of this,
Hey,
but
that's okay. It's all right.
my readers, my endorsers have said, no, it's fine. I
Yeah.
understood all of it. I got most of it.
Mhm.
So it was
Mhm.
just fun to use it. And yeah, had a blast talking to, we went to this very small town where the transit camp was located.
Mhm.
And we're just walking around on a Saturday afternoon, and there was one of the little markets. He had his vegetable stall all open, and he had the hugest mushrooms in the whole world sitting out there.
Mm.
I've never seen such big mushrooms in my entire life.
Crazy.
And so we had a whole conversation about how mushrooms are very big in France and very small in the United States. And
Yeah.
he thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm choosing to think. He thought it was hilarious and different.
He might have been laughing at your French.
Could have been,
You know,
but
who
we had a
knows?
good
You were probably talking about how big the dandelions were in France or
time.
something.
Who knows?
Who knows? But
Good time. Yes.
so when you went over there, are there landmarks of this maternity place? Is there like actual, is the house still there or wherever it was that it was held?
Yes, the
Okay.
transit camp is still there. It's crumbling. They are preserving some of the buildings as a memorial to the people who died there, and
Okay.
others they are letting to return to dust,
Hmm.
again as a memorial to the people who died there, as a part of history that's over and gone with, sort of a
Yeah.
cleansing
Yeah.
type of thing, in a good way.
Right.
And then the maternity home is still there.
Hmm.
It was in very bad shape when it was bought, I believe in the 80s or 90s, it was
Okay.
bought. And so it had been shaped like a cross with 4 different wings and 3 stories tall with a glass conservatory on the top.
Oh.
One of the wings had crumbled so badly it wasn't able to be saved. And so they put sort of a modern glass and steel entrance there, and that's where
Mm.
you enter. But the rest of it is still standing, and you can
Wow.
go, you tour it. The original floors are there, which so fascinated me that you'll read this book, and I'm describing an awful lot of floors because I just thought they were beautiful.
They're
So
great floors.
they were awesome floors. If I could have them in my house, I would. And so it was a lot of fun to look at all of the pictures that they had there of a lot of the children that had been there, and to read all about the work that happened there, both in the 30s and the 40s, and
Okay.
see the list of names of all the children who were born there was quite something.
Wow.
Was really neat. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, the children that were born there, were they typically given up for adoption then, or were they sent away with their mothers once they were born, or how did that work?
Sometimes they were sent away with their mothers once
Mhm.
they were born. There were other safe houses that they had throughout France because Switzerland was neutral.
Right.
Then they claimed this to be neutral territory. And for the most part, surprisingly, the Germans would raid these places every now and again. But for the most part, the Germans sort of left these Swiss homes that they established
Okay.
alone.
Okay.
And so sometimes they would send them away. other times the mothers would be taken away and the children left.
Mm.
But what she did was, and this is what the heroine in the World War II timeline does, is she made cards, and when she would send the children away, she would sew their true identities inside of their clothing so that they would always know who they really were. And so
Wow.
that at the end of the war, there would be a chance that they could be reunited with their parents if their parents were still alive. And so
Wow.
that was really important work that she did to try to preserve families.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I know adoption has a special place in your heart, with your own children that you've adopted. And how did that play into the writing of this story as you kind of your own motherly instincts kick in?
Right. Well, the main character just is super protective of her own child, and as a mother, I'm very protective of my children, whether your children are natural born or whether they're adopted.
Mm-hmm.
That motherly instinct kicks in, and you would do anything in the whole world for them. And
Hmm.
that's sort of her motivation going forward. And yes, adoption does play a part in the book, but it can't really tell you much more than that without.
Oh, killer.
I
Killer
know. You're going to have to
cliffhanger.
read it to
Grr.
find out.
That's all right. That's all right. That's fair. That's fair because it just makes us want to read the book all the more. So
There's too many spoilers in this one, I'm
it
afraid.
is, it's hard when you're writing split time. And I don't want to say that other books aren't difficult with spoilers, but it seems with split time, there's so many clues that go and flip between period to period that suddenly trying to summarize it becomes really difficult without spoiling something in the other time period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally hear what you say. So really, really what readers need to do is just go order the book.
Well, that would be great. Yeah,
Right.
of course.
Just get the book, people. It's that simple. Oh, now is this part of a series or is this a standalone? Or tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it is part of a series, but it can be read as a standalone.
Okay.
So it's called the Echoes of the Past series, and they are all split time novels, with the historical part being in World War II
Okay.
and then the contemporary part. And they all have to do either with a surprising DNA test or with your family tree, a surprising genealogical discovery on your family tree.
Hmm.
And so the first one, what I would tell you, was set in Greece.
Okay.
And that was a lot of fun. I got to go and research that one
Of
as
course you
well,
did. Yes.
because I mean, Greece, like,
Right. Why not?
yes.
Why not?
And so there's that one. And then there is What I Promise You, and that's the one that's coming out in February. Actually, I believe the ebook is scheduled now to release on January 15th
Oh, cool.
and the
Okay.
print book on February 1st. So it's getting close.
It's
It's
getting very close.
very close. Yes, yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
And then I am working on a third book in this series set in Poland, and that will release in December of 2024.
Okay.
And that one's called What I Left for You.
And did you go to Poland?
I did,
Of
yes.
course you did.
And this one is actually based on my family
Is
history.
it
And
awesome?
so I got to combine a genealogical trip with research for the book. So
That's cool because then it becomes really personal too. Just that whole hiking through the
yeah,
the place becomes personal.
for
That's
sure.
that's awesome. I love it. So I suppose do you just like throw a dart at the map and go, oh, that's where I want to go next, and then you plan a book around it for a research trip? I'm teasing.
Well, it's nice when it works out that way. I mean, I did get to go to France and Greece and Poland to research this. So it's wonderful when it
There you
works
go.
out that way. But it just so happened, I mean, God's providence and his timing
Mhm.
and everything are really perfect, because with the first one, I had no intention of going to Greece. I
Okay.
know a lot of people have it on their bucket list. It wasn't on my bucket list. And my daughter was doing an internship actually in
Oh.
Greece for a summer. And that was just as things were opening up after COVID, and we
Okay.
didn't know if she would be able to go on this internship or not.
Mhm.
And about 6 weeks before she was scheduled to leave, she got word that Greece was opening back up and she'd be able to go.
Right.
And then she was going right from there to Jordan to do her semester abroad that had been postponed because of COVID.
Mhm.
So I wasn't going to see her for 6 months, and that's just unacceptable to this mama. So, um, I thought, "Wow, shoot, I guess I have to go to Greece to see her and
Shucks.
research this book."
Shucks.
It just so happens that I had been pitching this book for a while and nobody
Okay.
was picking it up, and all of a sudden Barber said, "Yeah, we'll publish it." And so the timing was just absolutely perfect.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
So,
I
yeah,
love that. So,
yeah,
well, good. So we've got this book, we've got the first one in the series, and we've got one yet to look forward to in 2024, end of 2024. So
right, yeah.
awesome. This is great. Well, if readers want to find out more about you and your podcast and all of that, what's the best place to find all that information?
The best place to find me is on my website, which is very simply liztolsma.com. And there you can find out information about my podcast. You can find out information about my books there, about all of my books, as well as I have a sign up for my newsletter. And if you would like to get a sneak peek at the first two chapters, the first two
Ooh.
chapters are actually giving away
Ooh,
time.
2. Usually you
So
just get 1, so that's exciting.
I know. So the publisher said, "Well, let's do 2 this time." I think 2 would be really good to put both
Yeah.
out there. And so you can get the first 2 chapters, a sneak peek at those, see if this is something that would interest you. And so you can do that by signing up for my newsletter, and that's right there on my homepage. And you can check that out. And then all my social media links are there as well if
Awesome.
you'd like to follow me there.
Awesome. All right. Well, Liz, this was great having you, and we'll have to do it again, but thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.